So I want to welcome everyone to our June webinar. It's not July yet. I'm Linda Braun, and I'm the continuing education consultant for YALSA. And I'm really happy to have you all here for our Building Middle School Futures webinar.
Hello.
I'm going to mute everyone except for me.
No, I'm not.
Then
I won't go to the meeting.
Then the speakers will unmute themselves. If you could keep yourself on mute unless we're in a question and answer period and you want to ask a question out loud, great. So just a couple of things. Feel free to use the chat throughout this session. If you haven't found the chat, you should have a menu either at the top or the bottom of your screen. If you click on chat, it might be under more. You can open it up and feel free to ask questions. I'm going to keep track of questions for our facilitators and talk to each other, tell people what you're doing within the context of the session, but go for it. Feel free to use the chat. And then towards the end, we'll have a question and answer period, and you can open up your mics and feel free to speak out loud. If you have any questions during the session, just send me a chat message and I'll help with whatever needs to be helped with. And I think that's it. I will say a couple of other things at the end. So the next slide, I'm going to just briefly say these are our 4 facilitators today: Tyler, Karen, Allison, and Megan. And all of them are a part of the Future Ready with the Library project, which is a project funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, and a partnership between YALSA and ARSL, the Association of Rural and Small Libraries. And the focus of this project is working with middle schoolers on college career awareness. And I'm not going to say too much more about it because you will learn all about the work that libraries are doing throughout this session. But it's been a really great experience, and thinking about how middle schoolers need our support and thinking about their futures has been something that our facilitators and I have learned a lot about during this session. So before we get started, oops, I lost my slides. We're going to have a poll for you. So I'm going to open up the poll. And this one is just as you get started thinking about our topic for today, thinking about the interests of youth in your community. Like, what are the young people in your community interested in, and who might you connect with? So select one. So like, who would be your number one to connect with? I didn't make it multiple choice. And if you have an other, you can actually put that in the chat. So you could mark other and then feel free to, in the chat, add that. And I'll give it just another minute. People, I know it's hard to pick one, and I glommed things together. So like entrepreneur, because I didn't have enough, you can only have a certain number. So entrepreneurs could be beekeepers, website developers, consultants, all different kinds of things. Just got a couple of people who haven't voted if you want to get it now. All right, I'm gonna end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. And so ending the poll, and now I'm going to share the results. And as I share the results, I'm also going to go to the next slide, which Allison's going to get us started with this, and which is about what this work looks like and what it looks like to work with middle schoolers. And you see, and Allison, I don't know if you'll jump off of this, that schools was #1 with youth development organizations as 2, and keep that in mind as you keep going with this. Allison, as long as I'm right that you are the person who's first, go for it. That's me.
So in our community, we decided to really work on career exploration and awareness programming for middle school aged youth. Our main partner is actually the city's Office of Economic Development, and together we reach out and partner with multiple businesses and nonprofits and service providers in our community. we offered 4 interactive career exploration workshops that were day long, so from 9 to 3 in 2019. The teens came for the day, and we picked dates based on the school calendar. So when the kids were out of school and may not have something to do. So we did the end of Christmas break, the end of spring break, and when they were out for the summer for that first week when camps hadn't started and there was not a lot for them to be doing. Our first one, we partnered with a local bank, and the bank let them go through the teller line. They learned about the board of directors. They, one of the photographs here on the bottom right-hand side is where we talked about what we would wear to an interview or to a job and the different types of attire for different types of offices or wherever you're working. And the teen boys actually learned how to tie a tie. One of the bank employees brought some ties from home, and that ended up being a really impactful activity for them. And we also partnered with a communications company that provides internet and phone services to our community. And they got to learn about fiber splicing and how Wi-Fi is mapped, how their phones work and how they access the internet, and basically the behind the scenes look at all of that. And then we also partnered with our community theater. And that's this one you see, this photograph on the left-hand side. And so the community theater actually brought in a local radio station, and the radio station talked to the teens about how they film local sporting events and also how they broadcast those things. And the teens got to record some station IDs that were later aired, and also record an interview and do video. We also had a sound engineer come in, and the sound engineer taught them about what he does on a daily basis and how not only does he do music venues and music events, but he also works weddings, and how he started his own business and all of that. And so the last one that we did was a medical workshop. And so we explored local careers that existed in the medical field. And so we had a dentist, an orthopedic surgeon, a mortician, an embalmer, and a vet come in, and they talked to the teens about what their career was like. And we also did an activity here in that the upper right hand side where they learned how to suture, and one of the veterinarians actually taught them how to do sutures, and it was not easy, but they stuck with it, and they did a really good job saving the teddy bears. And I believe there were some Pegasus stuffed animals in there, so they saved those too. And so we really just wanted to focus on careers that existed locally so that the teens could see people that were in the community that had these jobs, and also expand their knowledge of what they could do. For instance, they always see a teller at a bank, but there are so many other jobs at the bank that are great careers that they could also be interested in. So that is what we did in our community. And so I think I am passing it over to Tyler.
Yep, that's right. So hello all, my name is Tyler Hahn, and I live in Cherokee, Iowa. We are located in kind of the tri-state area between Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, and even kind of touch on Minnesota just a little bit. Within my community, we started off going ahead and touching base with the school and communicating directly with 5th and 6th graders about their interests. Unsurprisingly, 100% said video games. They had played video games that week. 75% said that they had played video games that day. And I, mind you, I had met with these groups of kids right first thing in the morning. So that led us to developing a partnership with the North American Scholastic Esports Foundation, who offers a esports curriculum right now within Orange County High School in California. As of right now, we've been adapting their curriculum, working on soft skills, integrating that to teaching youth about careers within nerd culture, nerddom, gaming these kids really love their electronics and love seeing what is happening with these career fields. They're starting to focus more on careers that haven't necessarily existed in the past, like drones, for instance, have been really big within my community as well. We actually have a drone program going to be starting at one of our local community colleges as well. So that led to another partnership with them. Another thing that we learned in kind of reaching out within our community is that a lot of these students loved the sciences, love reading, but they just don't necessarily like their classes. So I worked with a local science center called the Sanford Museum and Planetarium, where we had a hands-on science day. It was called Meet the Scientist Day, where participants got to come in and talk with a professional from the area. So for instance, we have an archaeologist in the area. So we did an activity with her on bipedalism and talking about how our bones are shaped different than like a primate, for instance. We had a soil testing lab come in and we made slime. We were using skills from each of these different scientists and then putting them in sort of real life terms. So we ended up measuring out all of the ingredients for slime. We ended up talking about the chemical processes which went through. And then one of my other partnerships was with the Chamber of Commerce in the middle school proper in order to go ahead and host a career fair. So with that, we focused on local representatives, small business owners through the Chamber of Commerce, and introduced seventh graders to some of the different careers that we have in the area and what they pay.
Very cool.
And then, yeah, I will pass on to our next participant.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen, and unlike Allison and Tyler, I don't have photographs to show you from our event because we haven't had it yet. We're still in the planning area, but so I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we were getting started and the program that we've begun to develop, but it's just a skeleton program. The students at the middle school and high school will bring this to life once school starts again in August. And so really I wanted to talk about on this slide how to get started. And that was, I just went out into the community and I shared with everybody I knew that we were participating with this Future Ready with the Library grant. And I, you know, what do kids need these days? And I wanted to ask everybody whether they were parents, whether they were grandparents. We asked the kids themselves. We asked a lot of college kids because I'm in a college town. What is it that you wish you could go back and tell your 12-year-old self? What do you wish that you had known or could have started studying when you were 12 and 13? And that really brought a lot, because these kids are really in touch with what they wish they had known 5 years ago. And but I talked with everybody. So parents, grandparents, teachers, the guidance counselors, the kids, as people walked into the library, it was just, hey, what do you think kids need? And we just compiled all of that. And then I actually went back and talked with a bunch of the kids and said, hey, here's the things that people in the community think you need to know. And we began to put together what we're going to have in, I guess, a short term is a job fair for entrepreneurs, but we're teaming up leaders in the middle school with mentors in the high school, and they will be getting together and creating teams. We're going to go with a Google Classroom. It's how to plan an event. They're going to plan the whole job fair and then go out and develop soft skills by learning how to give interviews, talk on the telephone, ask research questions, and then invite different entrepreneurs from the community to participate in this job fair. So I don't have photos because it hasn't happened yet, but that's sort of where it got started. Does anybody have any questions? I minimized my chat, but let me bring that up here.
No questions yet. I'm just going to have us pass it over to Megan.
All right.
Hello, my name's Megan, and I'm actually the school librarian. Everyone else is public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm a K-12 school librarian. I'm at 2 different buildings, K through 6, and then 7 through 12. And I also, like Karen, have not completed my project yet, but I'm in the planning process, and it will happen as we're planned the second semester next year. And my project will be the whole semester long, once a week, with 6th graders in my school. I'm going to be working with the community economic developer, community experts, and the 6th grade classroom teacher. And we're calling it the Genius Hour. And within the Genius Hour, each week, students will use time given to research, learn by doing, collaborate with a community expert, and finally design a product that they can share with an authentic audience. I've been using the Genius Hour passion projects that ignite innovation and student inquiry by Andy McNair as my main resource, along with some online resources. And within the Genius Hour, students choose something that they really want to learn about. So that provides some motivation for them to really kind of give it their all. They plan, they pitch, they create a project, they create a product, and then they present. And those are the 6 Ps that are discussed within the book and kind of keep me on track in my planning. The students first find their passion, what they want to learn more about. Then they plan using 3 main questions. What am I trying to accomplish? Who's my audience? And who and what can help me as I work toward my goal? Next, they get to pitch to their classmates. And I think this is a great time for collaboration, public speaking, and deeper thinking, because the other classmates can provide feedback, ask questions, maybe see some bumps in the road that a student might have with his or her project. So it provides that sense of community within the classroom, because I think if everyone kind of has a sense of what other people are working on, then they will continue to try to learn more about it as the semester goes on. And they have some resources to go to within the classroom too. So they pitch their project. There are 3 types of projects that the students can do. A service project, which will serve others in some way. And this could be something such as creating a school pickup project for Earth Day or something like that. Some kind of service project, or helping doing something with maybe the local nursing home or something like that. The second type of project is a learning project, and it's where the students can learn as much as they can about a topic, and then they create something to share their information with others. And then the final type of project is a design project, and this is something that they design and make and then present to others. So it might be a craft project, it might be a baking, might be a gardening kind of thing. So there are many, many types of passions that I think it's going to be all over the board next year when we do this. I'm excited to see what the students pick for their projects. But during the project aspect of the Genius Hour, students acquire their materials that they need, they research, and they meet with their community expert. And we're going to try to find someone that within the community that the student can interview about that sort of topic. So they'll be working on interview skills and communication skills that way also. And finally, they'll create a product and present it to an authentic audience. Now, I chose this because I wanted to get the students into a meaningful learning where they feel like they have choice. It gives them responsibility with their planning, their time management. There's going to be some collaboration, and I really hope this ends up being something I can do every single year. I know there's going to be a few hiccups right away, but hopefully that we can continue this year after year and get better and better. Thank you.
Well, you're not done, Megan, so thank you, but you will continue, right? That's great. Thank you. Thank you all. So that's the overview. And like we said, feel free to, Tyler and Allison and I are chatting away, but feel free to add to the chat. We have another poll as we move on, and we're going to be talking about why, so that you had an overview of what people have been working on as a part of this project. And now we're going to be talking about why this is middle school, why this project and why this work is so important to middle school. And so we have a poll. Let me get to a different one. It's just a really quick one about how do you define middle school? Because we define it in a particular way in this project, but we're curious how you define middle school. And then also if it doesn't fit in here, what is your definition of middle school? And you can select other and then put that in the chat. 6th to 8th grade, 5th to 8th grade. Yeah. 7th and 8th. Yeah, I wondered about that when I did 6th and 7th. I thought, oh, I wonder if 7th and 8th, 7th and 8th. Okay. Yep. I'll give it another couple of seconds. We have about 5 people who haven't voted. So in case anybody else is going to vote, nobody is 6th and 7th. Who knows what that's about? 6th to 8th. All right, I am going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. End it, and then you can all see the results, which are right here. You see that 13%, most is 6th through 8th grade, which I think is pretty common. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then the group is going to have a bit of a conversation about why middle school. So, and I think Megan, you're going to get us started on that, right?
Yep. And as a school librarian, I'm K through 12. I have a really unique opportunity to work with the whole range of students and kids. And middle school, which I think for a lot of our projects we defined as 6 through 8, they are at a very unique time in their lives. They're no longer little kids and they're not yet teens, but almost always they're going from an elementary school to either a middle school or a high school, and they're expected to be successful at that level. We have an opportunity as librarians to help them with some of those soft and hard skills to help build some foundation for their success at high school and continuing on with their future. So why should we focus some of our services on middle schoolers who are sometimes 6 or 7 years away from graduating? Let's hear your thoughts.
So I know Linda has that quote there too, but I pulled one earlier from that putting middle grade students on the graduation path, which is, it talks about how their middle grade experiences have a tremendous impact on closing achievement gaps by the time they get to high school. So for us, we chose middle school because, in all honesty, they're often the forgotten age group. There's a lot of services provided to elementary, a lot of after school programs. And then once kids get to high school, they have all of these other activities that they can be involved in. But there's really, at least in my community, it seems to be the age group where after 5th or 6th grade, services and programs drop off and they're almost a little bit forgotten about. And also they're getting to look like adults. And we start to try and treat them like adults without providing them with the skill sets and opportunity to fail and explore those, those skills and characteristics, simply because they're starting to look like high schoolers and adults, and we're expecting those behaviors. So that's why in my community, and I still have partners and people in the community that get confused about that, or they think, well, why don't we just work with high schoolers? Or, well, because they want the immediate results for their business, which is if I can get a high schooler to learn about my business, and then I can intern them, and then I can, whatever, it could potentially be an employee. So sometimes they forget about that age group and planting those seeds early.
Allison, I think you're right. And I think with providing some of these cool programs that we've heard from the last few minutes, we're giving them some voice and responsibility in what their future, it's giving them kind of a hold of their own. And so if they see some of these things with those career cruising or the e-gaming or anything like that, it shows them some of the opportunities they can have, but then it also gives them a chance to practice some skills that they didn't know they needed to practice. And I think we talked about in some of our planning how the opportunity to practice conflict resolution and communication and decision-making skills is so important for these kids, because like Allison said, they're starting to look like young adults and adults. Some of them, they're still about 4 feet tall, but there's others that are, up there, but their brain has not got the same capacity as maybe their physical body has. And they need some help with some of those skills, especially some of those soft skills.
I have in my notes from one of our webinars, we treat middle schoolers as mini adults and expect them to behave as such. We are then surprised or dismayed to realize that they do not have or have not yet learned the skills needed for adult communication. And I keep this taped up on my wall so it reminds me that one of my jobs is to help incorporate those soft skills that they need that will carry them through high school and into the adult world. And that it starts with me. It starts here. It starts in middle school. And well, even before that, but now is where we're targeting that. So I can share that in writing, Leslie. I will put that out, but it's not mine. I just wrote that from someone else. It's probably Linda's.
No, I think it's probably Lakeisha, and I'll make sure when I send out all the info from this that I also link to that video we have of Lakeisha who talked to everybody about middle schoolers. So sorry to interrupt.
Well, and I often find that middle schoolers are more willing to try some new things, and they oftentimes have a little bit more time. They don't have that after school job quite yet. And I love how Allison, with her program, she said that she had them on the days that they didn't have school. And being from a small community, that tween age, that 6th to 8th grade or 5th to 8th grade, are always looking for things to do on the days that they don't have school, or they're just roaming the streets, and so if there's something cool that does drones or e-gaming, or they get a work with video cameras or anything like that, they're going to be all for it.
Well, and I think that a lot of these projects are helping them discover their identity. It's giving them voice and choice within their learning, but they're within this transitionary period that they're at, where they're not quite children anymore, but yet they're not quite young adults. We don't know what to expect out of them, but they don't even know themselves. And a lot of these tools that we're providing is giving them that opportunity to go ahead and discover themselves and their interests, whether it be career cruising or your Genius Hour projects. These are all passion projects where we can go ahead and integrate some soft or some hard skills while they're learning more about themselves. And I think that's the most purposeful part of what we're doing as librarians with these projects.
I also find that in middle school, they tend to have the school year broken up into shorter classes, not so much timeline, I mean, not so much time periods, but they'll take a 9-week class. So they have home ec for 9 weeks, then they'll have shop for 9 weeks, then they'll have mechanical drawing for 9 weeks. Whereas when they get into high school, they're either half year or full year classes. And so I think now is a time to give them the chance to try a whole bunch of stuff before they sign up for a whole year class and something that they may determine they didn't want to do. If they learn early on that because of something that we've exposed them to, that they love theater or they love mechanical drawing or makerspace things and they're really good with hands-on, then they can explore that a little bit in middle school and much longer in high school. And I just think that if they recognize something they don't like, then they're not stuck in that class for a whole year.
Yep.
Well, and how many of us changed our majors 4 or 5 times in college before we settled down with what we really were passionate about? We used that time to go ahead and decide, and for some of us, it was a bit expensive.
Mm-hmm. And I think the last thing is just also making sure that we're including adults in these discussions as well, simply because not only do we have to educate and train ourselves, but we have to educate other providers in the community and other members of the community that work with youth that, you know, middle schoolers aren't bad kids, and that these are, you know, this is why they're doing this. This is why it's important to try and change that culture of mindset that middle school is hard to work with.
Well, and to build on top of that is providing some positive role models that these kids, some of these kids need some positive relationships. You know, I'm not saying all of them need something like that, but to maybe create a connection or something like that eventually that will do something super positive within that kid's life. And it might just be one person, but to bring in some of your community members who you think would work well, I think, and you can delegate some of the responsibilities too, which is nice.
Right, I'm gonna move us on, thank you. And again, feel free to type questions in the chat and we'd love to have them. I think this is awesome to hear about why middle schoolers. And then where we're going next from this is that we're going to, the group's gonna talk about how you do engage with the community and some of the things they've learned. I think you all saw how with that, the examples, they had lots of different community partners. So, and sorry about the noise in my background. I'm gonna stop talking, and Tyler, you are up.
Yes, thank you, Linda. So community engagement, we all know, is the process of working collaboratively with community members, be they library customers, residents of our communities, faculty at school, community college, etc., students and partner organizations to address the issues our communities are facing for the betterment of community. And I think as librarians, with us serving all of these different people, we are in a great space within the nucleus of each of our communities to go ahead and achieve this mission. So for community outreach for me, initially starting with this project, I started with connecting with agencies and organizations who deal with people who have a similar mission, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce, whether it be the local area economic development agencies, those were all really great helps. And then I also looked into contacting organizations who were kind of clustered within area economical development, or economical things that we're into. So like agriculture, we being in the Corn Belt, we have a ton of different diesel engine specialists. We are specialists. We have a lot of different seed producers, just tons to do with agriculture. And then finally, I started contacting small businesses as well, because you know, there's so many within our community. We only ended up having, or have, one major employer within my community. It's a warehouse, and they're moving more to automation. So I contacted tattoo parlors, mortuaries, yoga studios, and there's even a place right across the street from my library that serves alkaline water. I went ahead and had a conversation about them, about where they see the future of their business, what are their business needs, etc. And then from there, just keep on talking about your projects and engaging with your community. Being in Iowa, we are a political battleground state. One of the people I had talked with was working with Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign. And she said, I think that you would really like to go ahead, Elizabeth would really like to go ahead and learn about what you're doing. So when she's the next town over, do you mind just stopping and talking with her for a few minutes? So we have a really nice, it wasn't a very long conversation, but it was a great conversation about what the role of libraries and rural communities are.
Very cool.
All right, and I guess that leads us to our next speaker. If anybody has any questions or anything like that. Karen?
All right, so the top left-hand side picture is a terrible selfie, but it's with a couple of the teens that are involved with our library. We were at a fundraiser at a local restaurant, but we just moved into a new building, and so we've been doing tons of outreach, letting people know that the new library is open, which also gave me an opportunity to say, hey, guess what, we also have this, we're part of this great group. I'm part of a cohort of people from all around the country, and we're each planning a project that is unique to our community. So I need to talk with people about what makes our community unique and what it is that our community needs. And so then I guess that was on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is a picture of me, and I look like I'm waving. I actually was engaging people at Rotary to raise their hand. If you're ever public speaking, always try to interact with your audience. If you raise a hand, it makes their lungs fill up with air and they stay awake. So there's just a little hint for you. But you know, I went to Rotary, and I went to Lions Club, and I went to the Business Association, and I met with just all sorts of people like Tyler, going into businesses and saying, I know I don't have a project yet, but I'm working on a project. And so what do you think? And a lot of times it was just people want to know about the library before they gave an answer about where they saw themselves in the future, or what they thought kids needed. They wanted to know about the library. And so it was a great way to just do a whole bunch of outreach. While focusing on middle school, we were able to actually forge a lot of partnerships that are not a part of this particular project, you know, Future Ready, but will be future projects at the library. And it was a great way to get to know my community and to have the library interact with businesses where we also weren't asking for money. You know, we weren't asking for support in a financial sense, but we were going and saying, hey, this great thing is happening at the library and we want you to know about it. And so that was a lot of fun to be able to go without having my hands out and saying, can you give, can you support? It was more, hey, I just need some answers. And so that was a fun interaction that we had. We talked about middle schoolers, high schoolers, college kids, what people needed. And I said here on the slide, we talked about the digital divide and financial responsibility, who's paying for college, how college can be paid for. We talked about all sorts of opportunities. And yeah, fill that lung. It causes you to inhale and stay awake. There you go, Allison. Woo! Everybody do the wave. So, and we just, and a lot of times it also opened up the conversation just to things that seem to be a national conversation as far as bullying or inclusion, or just I'll go with digital divide, how some people don't have cable or don't have internet, and how do they get access to information. So it's just we talked all sorts of obstacles and solutions. Yes, Allison's over there.
Get silly, but we won't. Megan, you are up next.
Okay. Now, I have some ways that I engaged with my community for my project, but first I want to connect with the poll that we took at the beginning, and a lot of you had community partner ideas with schools, and that is an awesome idea because teachers, coaches, administration are always looking for some fresh ideas, and right now future ready skills are hot topics. So if we can get creative with some kind of like that, something like that, and partner with the schools, most of the time we will be on board. So I went to my school administration right when I joined this cohort because I thought that I could make the biggest impact with my program, whatever I decided to do, because I didn't know at that point when I was talking to my administration. During the school day or right after school, I thought I could touch the most individuals that way. Lucky for me, I have two great principals who were like, yeah, whatever you decide to do, we will be all for it. We will try to find time. Time is very hard to find within the school day. But we found a good compromise of once a week with my Genius Hour. Now, and I talked to them before I even had an idea because I wanted to pick their brain on what kind of skills they thought these middle schoolers could benefit from. Another way that I engaged my community was I created a survey through SurveyMonkey and posted it on our community Facebook website. And I had about 40 people who took this survey, and the survey lasted, it was one question, and it was just to ask, what are the top 5 skills that you think youth in our area could benefit from? And they were different things like conflict resolution, planning, motivation, physical education, mental education, all types of things. I think I had about 15 different skills listed, and I got a top 5 from a group of participants. I also took a paper copy of that survey and visited the Chamber of Commerce meeting. And a lot of those individuals are small business owners, and their campaign right now is to keep things local. And so they are really excited about possibly getting into the schools and working with some of the youth on that. And I also got to hear what kind of skills they think future workers will need. After that, I have on my slide, I have hit up Main Street. Now, I live in a pretty small community, about 1,200 within our city, and I walk everywhere. It's easier to walk than drive for the most part. And so whenever I'm going into small businesses, walking my dog, being with my kids at the parks, people ask what's going on in the library, and I can tell them about some of these projects. And a lot of times they give me some great ideas to try or to mix it in with some ideas that I already have. So there's that too. Hit up Main Street, walk around, try to weave it into your conversation. And the last thing I really, really want to talk to you about is school librarians and public librarians. They can definitely work together, because I'm lucky enough that for half the day, I'm in the same building as the public librarian. And she is great. And she knows you guys are awesome. You guys know almost everything about the community. You have great resources. So if you're a school librarian, talk to your public librarian about some of the resources, some of the events, all of these types of things. But if you're a public librarian, talk to your school librarian, because they have the in with the school and they have the in with the kids. They know the students. They know some of the skills that are needed. They know some of the problems. They know all the good stuff. So collaborate with your school or public librarian, and I think that it's a relationship that you should build no matter what. And I will pass it on to Allison.
Have to unmute myself. There we go. So I will echo exactly what Tyler and Megan and Karen said about specific organizations that you can reach out to: Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, Chambers, Main Streets, tourism, all of those. When I began the process of assessing kind of the need of middle schoolers in my community, I really started on neutral ground. Just, like Karen was saying, I wasn't asking for anything. I just wanted to meet these people and talk about what they do for the community, and then also talk to them about what some of their concerns were for youth in the community, as well as what they felt some of the strengths were that youth had. So I talked with teens, I talked with parents, school administrators, youth services providers, businesses and employers, and I went to them when it was convenient for them. And so, and one of the tools that I used when I got stuck or things didn't seem so obvious was that I would do community walks and I would do community drives to kind of map the assets of my community. And I still do this today to see what new businesses are there. Did something close? What time of the day is popular for this? Or, we have another cohort member. What parking lots are full? Where are all the people and what are they doing? Just taking 5 minutes when maybe you have an extra 5 minutes before a meeting or something like that, and just taking a different way to work, and just really taking a look with fresh eyes at what is really in your community. I also talked specifically with teens about their interests, about what they did not like about the community and what they thought it was lacking. And that's really where I got to they didn't feel like they had a safe space that was theirs, and also that there were not necessarily activities for them to do outside of school sometimes. And that's kind of this photograph on the bottom left is an activity, snowball activity, where they were writing some of their interests down on snowballs, and then we were talking about skills and things like that. So really talking to teens, and then, I kind of took on a workforce development angle, and I started meeting with businesses and organizations that employed people in our community, and talking to them what their struggles were when they hired youth. What were they noticing when they onboarded new staff? What were some of the skills that they were lacking? And also, what were the most difficult jobs in our community to fill? And so just talking with them about what their concerns were for the future, and also what strengths they felt like they saw when they were hiring youth. So I also will again echo the going on neutral terms, and then also asking if there's anything that the library can do for them, and making sure that people think of you as a resource for businesses and for the school and for families, and making yourself available when you're not asking for something, and just checking in to see, learn about their business, learn about what they do, and just doing that in a really genuine way, so that they realize that you're going to help them. So that's a lot of what I did when I was engaging with my community, and just to develop those ideas about how we could turn those issues that people were talking about into a potential program or service to help teens with career awareness.
Thank you, Allison and all. So our next section of this, and we'll have a few minutes for questions at the very end. But one of the things I think we've all learned who've been a part of this project is thinking about what this means. I always say to people, working with middle schoolers is not, with college career awareness, it's not about filling out FAFSA forms or SATs or learning, taking SAT prep. It's doing the kind of work we're talking about here. And so we thought we'd talk a bit about changing mindsets. And so we're going to have a conversation again from the group. And Allison, I'm going to have you start this conversation with, what really goes into this and how do you help change mindsets around middle school and college career awareness?
So you have this wonderful mashup of what some of us have said over the past few years. And it's, once you start doing this work, it's like a light bulb goes off and it becomes part of everything that you do for and with teens. And it is true. When you start to think about all of the opportunities that exist that are already happening. So if you already have programming in place, it is so easy on a small scale or just to get started to really start to implement some of these future ready or social emotional learning opportunities into programs that you might already have. It also kind of clicks that when you're working or talking with teens, you realize, you start to see the opportunities that you can start having these discussions about, oh, this is a really great time where we're learning about public speaking, we're learning about, all of these different types of things, but you can do that with the programs that you already have in place. So I think it just becomes all encompassing, this idea of helping middle schoolers and teens become more career and future aware. I don't know if Megan or Tyler or Karen.
I can really agree that this this cohort and opportunity has kind of served as a catalyst for the rest of the community. I really don't have a fear at this point, if something were to happen to me, that I would move on to another position or elsewhere, that these activities would continue on with my library and with my community, because the seeds have been planted, things are starting to grow, and the community is already starting to see some of the positive outcomes.
I would agree with Tyler. I don't necessarily know that it'll, well, I'm not planning on going anywhere, but I liked that the conversations that I had within my community then led to other things. As I'm talking with one of the people at the university, she mentions that she does a mommy and me like baby music session. And so it just opened up all these other pathways and all these other conversations. But like the quote says, it becomes a part of everything you do for teens. I think that's true. So much of it was then, how can I get the teens involved? How can I fit this into our career fair? Or how can I get them involved in this next project so that what can they learn from this mommy and me music thing? How can I get teens involved in all that? So it does become sort of the canvas from which you work.
It had me, when I started this cohort, I didn't realize the gap in programming and activities for middle schoolers. And it really made me look at, okay, we have some stuff for the elementary age and we have some stuff for the high school age, and the middle school didn't fit in with either. And so when I started to really focus on that group, it was almost the group that needed it the most. They are transitioning into such a big part of their life where they have a lot more independence, but they need help. They need help with a lot of skills that we assume will come naturally. And for some it does, but it doesn't. And it really made me look at how can these kids connect with the community around them? And they do, whether it's activities or future work, or if they're going to stay, or how can they contribute? They can, or they will soon within a few years. And it makes sense to focus on them.
That's great. Thank you all. So now we have a little bit of time, and as we go into questions, you can feel free to unmute your mics. I'm going to just do one last poll, because one of the things we've talked about in this group is that what we're talking about here isn't always so different. It's just sometimes thinking about what you do. And so how are you already doing this work? And then feel free to add in the chat as well. If something isn't here, take the poll, but also ask questions. Unmute yourself, or put in the chat a question. We have a few minutes for that. And I'm also at the same time going to move to the slide that has everyone's email so I don't forget that. Any questions people have? Cool. Give it just another minute for the poll, but feel free to ask. Well, people might be typing in or are answering the poll questions. I wanted to ask how you all find, how you all see this going forward. What are you thinking about will happen next as Future Ready moves on?
Well, we will do more workshops in 2020. And we have more people interested in the community that will partner and participate, as well as including transportation, so we can move teens from different locations in the area. And that way we'll be able to include more businesses as well as more trade jobs, because we do have a lot of manufacturing and other jobs that are kind of just outside of city limits. So we also have a community college, and kind of being able to move teens to those areas so that they can kind of explore those options as well. And so that's our plan for 2020, but I will partner again with the Office of Economic Development, and we will work on probably what we think is a 3 or 4 day in a row program in the summer.
My library going forward, we're planning on collaborating with different businesses, and especially our community college, to offer summer camps to teach both soft and hard skills. So we're planning on doing a leadership academy. We're planning on working on a streamer camp, where it works on if you want to be a YouTube personality or you want to learn how to stream video games more effectively. Either one of those avenues would be great for you. And then we're also working with a lot more with agriculture as well. I've just started talking with one of our area veterinarians about doing a K-pop and kittens activity. So yeah, from the brilliant mind of, yes, Tyler Hahn.
Well, I'm looking forward to putting the whole event together with working with the kids, the students, and putting it all together. And then from there, seeing where they want to take this, you know, whether they're, we're partnering 7th graders and juniors in high school and 8th graders along with seniors. So then the following year, those 7th graders will be 8th graders and the juniors will be seniors. And so looking forward to seeing how that develops into maybe a bigger program.
And I'm on summer break, sorry about that, but in the fall, well, continue working on planning and implementing my Genius Hour project, but then also we're working with the teachers on building a program or class to help the 6th graders transition into the into high school. So they go into the high school. And because we've seen a lot of kids struggle that first semester, so building on organization and how to use planners and some very concrete skills that we assume they're going to get within the first week, and they don't. So, and I think the library can really, really be a good resource for that class. So working with some of them.
Thank you. We hit time. So thank you all. I really want to thank our facilitators of Tyler, Allison, Karen, and Megan. That's how I see you on my screen. So thank you all for talking about the work you're doing and why the work is so important. I really appreciate it. I will be sending out a recording and the slides and the chat transcript probably tomorrow morning. And if you have any questions, like they said, feel free to get in touch. Our next webinar, which is on the second Thursday of the month in July, will be on service learning and how to build equity into your service learning activities within 14. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and beginning of your summer. Bye all.